Hello, everybody. Welcome to Sunday Night Ghost Stories Extra, because we're on a Thursday. Oh my goodness me, JM, you mad fool. Why are you on a Thursday? Well, I won't be available to do a show tomorrow night because I am being wined and dined by beautiful. No, I'm being wined and dined by business clients. So, anyway. So I thought rather than not do a show, we'll do one on a Thursday. And as you can see, it's a very sweltering night tonight. Just looking out the window here, and yeah, it's clear blue skies-ish, just a few wisps of cloud. So yeah, but anyway, here we are. So what are we reading? We are reading The Ghost Tour of Great Britain and Wales. Sorry, The Ghost Tour of Great Britain, Wales. So we picked up on this last night. This looks to be beautifully short stories, so which is what we like. So anyway, oh, sorry, I meant to say, here we are in the library, blah, 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 blah. What are we drinking tonight? It's a 2-beer strategy. So we're going to have one of the subscription beers, which is from the Saltaire Brewery. It's actually a lager, and I'm not a fan of lager, but there we go. Clean and refreshing, brewed in Yorkshire. 4% volume of alcohol, crisp, dry lager style beer, okay, with spicy hop aroma from Saaz hops, contains barley, beer done right. And it says, we love creating delicious, high quality beers with real character. We don't compromise on quality, brewing the Saltaire way to produce good, honest beer, always. It also says, drink responsibly. Right, so there we go. Saltaire Brewery, lager. Right, so let's, oops a daisy. Fizzing all over the place. And whilst we're pouring that out, what are we washing it down with? I meant to go down to Lidl today to get some more scotch, but I completely forgot. I was too busy working, quite frankly. So we're on the last, quite literally the last of the Ardbraccan, because that's probably a couple of fingers left in there, if you pardon the expression. So yeah, so shall we crack on Mitt the Ghost Stories? And then we can get to halftime, blah, 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 blah. So here we are. So this story is Denby Castle. If ancient places inspire you to conjure up fascinating images of days gone by, look no further than Denby Castle in north-east Wales. The castle is built on a steep hill and holds a commanding view of the surrounding Vale of Clwyd. And after an exhausting climb from the centre of Denby, there is romance from the first minute as you cross a wooden bridge that leads to what are now the ruins of a once imposing landmark. Just going to break off for a second here. See, correct use of a comma and here. So the castle is built on a steep hill and holds a commanding view of the surrounding Vale of Clwyd. And if you take out the next sentence, there is romance from the first minute as you cross a wooden bridge towards what are blah, 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 blah. Bruce, if you're watching from the afterlife, that's how you use an and a comma. Not every time you see the word and is put a comma in there, whether it's needed or not. Anyway, welcome to Sunday night grammar lessons. Anyway, unlike Carmarthen, Conway, Harlech, and Beaumaris, the big four in King Edward I's infamous ring of castles, Denby doesn't enjoy World Heritage Site status. But in common with them, it was built to encircle and subdue the native Welsh in the late 13th century. Part of my research into haunted buildings involves a thorough inspection, and it was while poking around the outside of Denby Castle that I believe I saw a ghost. Walking past the window, I glanced in and saw a dark figure completely dressed in black there inside the room. I didn't know whether it was sitting or standing, but thinking no more of it, I continued along the path to a kiosk where visitors pay to enter the castle. Here I introduced myself to the man on duty, explaining what I was doing and requesting permission to do some filming. He told me this wasn't a problem and said he would get me the key for the tower. As we walked back along the path together, I asked the gentleman if there was a reenactor in the room. Surprised, he replied that there shouldn't be anybody in that particular room. When I explained what I had seen, he confirmed that the location where I had seen the figure in black was where the entranceway to the dungeons used to be. He said several visitors had reported seeing something unnatural in the room, and others had sensed some sort of presence. I have to admit that I entered that room pretty sheepishly, but of course there was nobody in there. I am sure, however, that it wasn't simply my imagination playing tricks on me. While not actively hunting a ghost, I caught sight of a figure in black that could not be explained. I truly believe that I saw a ghost at Denby Castle. Later that same afternoon, I walked along to the Goblin Tower with Trevor, the tower's custodian. He explained to me its history, and I discovered that this tower had been the last section of the castle to be built as a defence for a new well that had been created at Denby to provide a constant supply of water for the castle's inhabitants. The castle's original well had regularly dried up in the summer months, and the new well was regarded as so important that at its top a drawbridge was built to close it off if necessary, to prevent it being captured in case the tower was ever taken. The well itself is known as the Bloody Well, and the Goblin Tower that watches over it is said to be haunted by a son of Henry de Lacy, the third Earl of Lincoln, and the man responsible for building Denby Castle from 1283 to help consolidate the English conquest of Wales. Standing as a symbol of English sovereignty over the region, this castle was built on the ruins of earlier Welsh fortifications. Gosh, doesn't that just sound like the English, eh? De Lacy had two sons, the younger of whom was tragically killed at another De Lacy castle in Pontefract. The boy was playing one day at the top of a tower and went over the battlements while chasing a ball, falling to his death. The elder son, Edmund, was also playing one day on the very top of the Goblin Tower at Denby when he lost his footing and slipped. He fell not just over the tower, but also all the way down into the base of the Bloody Well. His ghost supposedly haunts this place, and many people over the years have said they have seen a boy at the window of the Goblin Tower, his face sad and dejected. Edmund was only 15 when he fell from the tower to his untimely death. Now, okay, Richard, there should be a comma here. Edmund was only 15 when he fell from the tower to his untimely death. Should be a comma. And the heartbroken Henry de Lacy had lost both his sons in carbon copy tragic circumstances. With nobody left to whom he could hand over his beloved castle, Henry de Lacy simply walked away from Denby, despite years of painstaking building work. With his second son dead, the de Lacy line was finished. I think that definitely deserves a thunderclap. So. Reading that line again. Edmund was only 15 when he fell from the tower to his untimely death. I definitely should be a comma there. The heartbroken Henry de Lacy had lost both his sons in carbon copy tragic circumstances. How long's this one? Goodness me, 4 pages. Oh God, 5 pages. 6 pages. We're going to have to break that up with a beer and a bump. So, slange me bar, everybody. That's quite sweet, actually. Doesn't taste like a lager. It definitely is a beer, but it's very pale. Yeah, there we go. Like, you can see how pale it is in the magnificent Rush beer glass, by the way. Big thank you to viewers Kirsten and Steve, the United States. Cheers, me beers. Oh, we got some viewerage. Who's joined us on the viewerage? It's viewer David, would you believe? Hello, viewer David. Getting ready for tomorrow's Jadlam show, which is exciting stuff. Right, the Castle Hotel, Ruthin. Set amid the medieval remnants of Ruthin Castle is the Victorian Castle Hotel. While staying at this hotel, visitors can wander the castle grounds and remains, breathing in the great history of this place, which includes stories of murder, executions, and a fascinating ghost known as the Grey Lady. Like many before me, I wandered around the grounds too, looking for her ghost. My exploration wasn't without incident. First, I made my way to the dungeons of Ruthin Castle, but was stopped in my tracks by the echo of footsteps, the sound coming from somewhere behind me. Undeterred, I strode on, but with every stride I made, I heard a footstep behind mine. I turned round to look, trying to catch out whatever was tracking me, but nothing was there. No footprints, no imprints in the leaves. You will know, I am sure, that my first instinct is always to be a skeptic, but I really did hear something on my visit to Ruthin Castle, and it was something I didn't like. There was certainly nothing spooky about the setting. It was broad daylight. The sun was shining on a glorious day at the end of June. One doesn't expect ghostly goings on at that time of the day, but on this particular day, all my instincts told me I was being followed. Still very much on edge, I continued on down into the dungeons. The entrance to this ancient subterranean prison is now no more than a dark hole dating back to 1282. I can't even speculate how many unfortunate people must have been incarcerated down here. Deprived of the relative sanctuary of the warm sunshine, I pushed on alone, but with growing trepidation. Like so many Welsh castles, Ruthin goes back a long way. It is believed that the original foundations date back to the year 1271, and that the castle was built on the instruction of King Edward I. Castles, of course, were a defence mechanism, and many sieges have taken place at Ruthin down the years. In 1400, Owain Glyndŵr laid siege to the town, and although the castle withstood the attack, the community of Ruthin was burned to the ground. In 1646, which is just gone 4:45, Ruthin was again besieged, this time by Oliver Cromwell, and the castle on this occasion was captured and pulled down. It was with images of these bloody battles spinning in my head that I continued to explore and found the place where prisoners would have been held and tortured. This part of the dungeon has a most sinister atmosphere, cold, damp, very dark. An incredible archway survives and a staircase, but where these lead I do not know, for they have been blocked off for many years. Nearby is another area that is completely walled off, presumably where unfortunate people would have been left to die. We call them nursing homes these days. I also noticed a hole that had been driven deep into the walls. Legend has it that any person with the nerve to reach a hand into this hole can shake hands not with the devil, but with spirits that still linger in the castle's dungeon. I eventually plucked up enough courage to reach into the hole. Thankfully, nothing happened, but understandably, I didn't leave my hand there very long. I think I'll have a swig of the old beers. Slange. Delish. I reckon the chances of ghosts being in this dungeon are immense because it is surrounded by stone, and I am a great believer that stone has the ability to hold images, recordings of violent, tragic, and premature death. Yep, Nigel Neal's The Stone Tape Theory, or indeed the television drama from 50 years ago, The Stone Tape. Oh, it's on YouTube. You've got to watch it. It is eerie, absolutely brilliant. Right. Let's carry on. I believe at certain times, if atmospheric conditions are in tune with those that prevailed when death occurred, the image in the stones kicks into life exactly in the same way as if we were pressing the play button on a video or DVD machine. Some say recordings are also released on significant anniversaries and that only certain living individuals can witness a tragedy being reenacted. So perhaps any ghosts that roam the dungeons at Ruthin Castle are of the scary movie variety rather than the altogether more terrifying form that can interact with us ghost hunters. In general terms, however, all spirits, good and evil, crave the light, and that's where I headed next. Out in the daylight, I felt much better, and putting behind me the experience of that dank dungeon, I determined to hunt down the grave of the Grey Lady. It is not often that ghost hunters manage to find the actual grave of a ghost, but after some searching, that is exactly what I did. This sacred place in the grounds of Ruthin Castle has all the perfect ingredients for a scene from a Christopher Lee horror movie. Ancient stonework, crumbling archways, and ivy everywhere. The grave itself is no more than a pile of stones, but it is here that the Grey Lady rests, or rather, doesn't rest. She is often seen still wandering the grounds of this once proud Welsh castle. Legend has it that she was the wife of the second in command of the garrison at the castle. Her husband, it is said, was having an affair with a peasant woman. This liaison went on for some time and was the talk of Ruthin, until eventually his wife, the Grey Lady, could take it no more. Deciding she had suffered enough humiliation, she is said to have launched a vicious Deciding she had suffered enough humiliation, she is said to have launched a ferocious attack, beheading her rival with an axe. The jealous wife, however, the jealous wife was, however, brought to justice and condemned to death for the murder. The execution was to be at the castle itself. She was then buried on exactly the spot where I stood, in unconsecrated ground. I believe that is why she still haunts the castle. She can't rest because she did not get a decent burial, and instead of her having her own coffin and grave, her remains lie in unconsecrated ground. That's just, oh my goodness me. We haven't even got to the end of this story, this chapter, and already we have a dead soldier. And run, VT.
Oh, it's jolly nice of you. Hello, dead soldier. Seen plenty of those in my time.
Cheers. It was still broad daylight at Ruthin Castle, and the sun continued to shine overhead. I had with me an EMF meter that picks up electromagnetic fields. Energy is everywhere. No one can destroy energy, and that is precisely why I believe ghosts still haunt. I switched on the meter in an effort to detect the Grey Lady's presence. Instinct told me I wasn't going to get a reading, as ghosts do not usually appear to an audience. For a few moments, the dial didn't move, but suddenly I got a reading. For me, this was both exciting and disturbing because there was no electricity here, no light switches or overhead cables. There was no reason whatsoever that I should get a reading on that spot unless the Grey Lady was there with me. As I walked to an archway beyond the grave, I had a horrible premonition that she was waiting for me. Suddenly there was a tremendous commotion. Peacocks seemed to appear in a flap of wings from absolutely nowhere, and the meter again started to pick up something. This is a medieval castle. There was not an electric cable in sight, yet I was getting a very good reading, just as if something or someone was standing with me by the doorway. I don't know why, but I sensed she would be with me for the rest of the morning. I had a camera crew with me at the time, but as soon as the camera crew came up close to monitor the reading on the EMF meter, the readings stopped. Perhaps the grey lady is a camera-shy ghost. Later, I found the path where the grey lady is said to walk, and to this day, the place is known as the Ladies' Walk. I had the EMF meter with me, and as I entered the Ladies' Walk, according to the dial, she was still with me. However, as I started to walk down the path, the reading stopped. It was strange, really, as this was the place I had expected her to be. I believe the reason there are so many stories about sightings of grey ladies is because ghosts, seen fleetingly, appear to be grey. An apparition I witnessed in an old jail in Derbyshire came and went so quickly that I couldn't even tell if it was male or female. All I knew for certain was that it was distinctly grey. These are brilliant. I've got to say, Richard Felix, you know how to write a good ghost story. Hear that, Bruce? Richard Felix knows how to write a good ghost story. Having said that, I am in the market to see if I can get Ghost Stations 6, 7. I believe there's a Ghost Stations 8. But when I was on eBay last night, I found them, but I couldn't find them for a decent price. I'm not paying 20 quid for Bruce Barrymore helping his imaginative use of the English language. So cheers me beers. Oh, smash. Oh, lovely. Right. Powis Castle, Welshpool, Powis. Powis Castle is an impressive building that dates from the 13th century and has more than its fair share of ghosts. There are stories of a white lady who wanders the castle, as well as of an unidentified man seen on frequent occasions, and a headless horseman who has been seen galloping through the grounds. Probably the most well-documented story of all is that of the ghost of a man who visited the castle one night and then disappeared. A seamstress arrived one day at the castle in search of employment. Read that again. A seamstress arrived one day at the castle in search of employment. At the time, the Earl of Powis was away in London, and the steward of the castle and his wife had a lot of work to do. As a result, they gave the young lady a job for the day. As the night started to draw in, the steward informed the seamstress that she was welcome to stay at the castle overnight. When her work was finished, she was led up to her room by a fellow servant and was greatly surprised when the door was opened to reveal her room for the night to be a splendid, large suite, complete with a roaring fire. There was, however, a somewhat sinister reason for her being given such grand quarters, for this particular room had been haunted for some time. It was well known among the servants at Powis Castle that nobody was able to sleep peacefully in this haunted place. The seamstress read a few pages of the Bible and then retired to bed. Before falling asleep, however, she sensed the door of her room opening, and in the half-light created by the fire's dying embers, she was able to pick out the figure of a man. Paralyzed by fear, she watched the intruder walk around the room restlessly, as if looking for something, before turning and leaving by the door, which closed behind him as he left. When the man had first walked into her room, the seamstress had assumed he was flesh and blood, but on realizing she couldn't hear anything, not even the sound of his breathing, she realized that what she was witnessing was a ghost. A God-fearing woman, she immediately knelt down and started to pray. As she did so, however, she heard the door creak open once more, and the same figure entered a second time. Shaking with terror, she watched as the man went through the same routine of searching the room before making his way out again through the door. The seamstress certainly had spirit, for after taking a while to calm her nerves, she climbed back into the bed and managed to fall into a slumber. But her sleep was interrupted in the early hours of the morning as the door opened again and the same figure made its way back into the room. Although she was terrified, this time the woman spoke to the man, asking what he wanted. He beckoned her to grab a candle and indicated that she should follow him out of the door. This she did, down a corridor to a room not far from her own. Here the figure pointed to a loose floorboard, and she lifted it to reveal a casket. The man asked her to ensure that the casket would be delivered to the Earl of Powys. Now at her wit's end, the brave woman ran out of the room to find the steward and his wife, telling them everything that had happened. As for the figure, he vanished, never to be seen again at Powys Castle. The next day, the discovered casket was delivered to London, and the Earl was so pleased with his gift that he sent back instructions that the seamstress be well looked after and rewarded. She was given lodgings in the castle and remained there for the rest of her natural life. It definitely deserves a thunderclap. Goodness me, we're 28 minutes and 30 seconds. Ah, note to self, get some more scotch when you're down in Lidl tomorrow. Oh, actually, no, I'll have a think about that. Slange. Right, nice short one there. 9, Montgomery Churchyard. I went to Montgomery Churchyard I went to Montgomery Churchyard in search of the infamous robber's grave. This belongs to the tragic John Newton Davies, who, though innocent, was hanged for highway robbery in the early 19th century. The year was 1821, which is almost 6:30. And in those days, along with 99, the year was 1821, and in those days, along with 199 other crimes, highway robbery was still a hanging offence. Davies had been appointed bailiff to a lady called Mrs. Morris in Shropshire at a place called Oakfield Farm. She was in dire straits. So was Mark Knopfler. Ha ha ha. She was in dire straits financially and was finding it almost impossible to run the farm on her own. In fact, the only help she had was that of her teenage daughter, Jan. At the time she was introduced to Davies, Mrs. Morris had just about given up hope and was preparing to sell Oakfield Farm. However, he was an excellent farmer, and within 2 years he had turned the farm around and made it a big success financially. But there was a downside. His unexpected success had incurred the wrath of 2 local men, both of whom had been looking forward to purchasing Oakfield Farm on the cheap from the desperate Mrs. Morris. One was Robert Parker, who wanted to buy part of Oakfield to extend his own farm, while the other was Thomas Pearce, whose ancestors had once owned Oakfield Farm. Thwarted, the pair decided to set up Davies, and one night, after attending market in Welshpool, he was confronted by Parker and Pearce as he rode home. The pair later claimed Davies had tried to rob one of them. Davies was subsequently brought before the Welsh magistrates, who believed the 2 local men and sentenced Davies to hang by slow strangulation. Dying on the gallows, choking and kicking out at the injustice of the situation, Davies made a vow that God would not let the grass grow on his day for at least. Let's read that again. Dying on the gallows, choking and kicking out at the injustice of the situation, Davis made a vow that God would not let the grass grow on his grave for at least one generation to prove that he was not guilty of the crime. Years later, in 1852, it was recorded that still no grass grew on his grave. When I visited the grave, I saw that a rose. When I visited the grave, I saw that a rose tree had been planted. Today, plenty of grass grows on John Newton Davis's grave, though people claim that bare patches can still be seen nearby. I picked up Davis's headstone, which was lying on the floor. It simply reads, "Robber's Grave." Davis met his maker knowing he was completely innocent of the crime that led to the hangman's gallows, and it is said his tormented soul can still be seen wandering around Montgomery churchyard to this very day. Well, John Davis, rest in peace. At least I hope his name was John Davis. I've forgotten completely what his name was now. I do apologise. Yeah, John Newton Davis. Yeah, John Davis. Right, half time. Slange. Part 2 of tonight's beer fest is the St. Peter's Abbey, Abbaye St. Pierre, Belgian Abbey beer, blonde, blondie beer. 6%, goodness me. And this is from Home Bargains, and it is absolutely marvellous stuff. Picked up the taste for Belgian Abbey beer when, believe it or not, when I was in Belgium 33 years ago, in Antwerp of all places. A twerp in Antwerp. And anyway, here we go. This is going to be the last of the Arbraken. Boo! This is what happens when we don't go out and buy scotch, ladies and gentlemen. Goodness me. It's going to be a 3 dead soldier show tonight. Goodness me. There we go. Uh-oh. Dead soldier and Run VT.
Oh, it's jolly nice of you. Hello, dead soldier. Seen plenty of those in my time.
But if you're David, if you're still watching, the cork from the Arbraken makes an excellent base for holding things when you're painting them. So, which is why I drink the Arbraken. So, what scotch am I going to get tomorrow? I fancy trying something different. And I don't know whether to get it in Aldi or Lidl. Actually, that's a very good point. Have I got some Lidl coupons to use up? I think I have. I think I've got a... What do you do on Thursday night? I tuned in to watch Sunday Night Ghost Stories Extra with the confused man from Dudley wearing his Pride t-shirt and holes in his head. But instead of getting on with the show, he started going on his Lidl app to see if he'd got any freebies. I do. I have a bakery spin. Right, here we go. What's my bakery spin? It is a free apple turnover, pretzel, or maple and pecan plat. Winner, winner, Christmas dinner. Right, got it. Coupons, that's all that activate. And I've also still got a all butter croissant and baked Belgian cookie freebie to get. Oh, meadow sweet crunchy salad bag, excellent. Bats basil, Oakland red onions. Yeah, we get through them like a ton of bricks. Oh goodness me, it's a clean sweep at Lidl. I think it's going to be Lidl tomorrow because I can go to Home Bargains and get some more beer. So just having a quick look. Coupons, no, that's fine. Yeah, it's been a solid day today. I was up at stupid in the office doing some artwork. Absolutely brilliant stuff. Another job completed. And I am off tomorrow to that there Glastonbury for the Jadlam, the Tamir takeover at Jadlam. Looking forward to that. Yeah, so that means I should be buying things at Jadlam, but so I'm just trying to think. I think that's pretty much it. I'm also having lunch tomorrow with my good friend Julia, so that should be brilliant. Hopefully next week back on the trains with Reg, of whom when I was out the other day, I found a shop that was selling lots of King's seeds, El Cheapo. So I got him some petunias and some oxeye daisies. He's very delighted with that. In fact, I've got to sow some stuff over the weekend. So I think I've got some pansies and some violas to sow at the weekend. So anyway, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, so, I meant to make some crumble tonight. I completely forgot. Never mind. I know I have forgotten to have is, oh, goodness me, where's my wasabi mix? Now, what am I having? Am I having Japanese style rice snacks? No, we'll have the wasabi mix. Almost forgot. Right. Goodness me, this next one is an epic. It's the Skirrid Inn, Llanfihangel, Croccorny. So I went to the graveyard at Llanfihangel, Croccorny in Monmouthshire. Here are the graves of the Price family, in particular the grave of Fanny Price, who was the beloved wife of Henry Price, a landlord of the legendary Skirrid Inn. It was for this reason that I was there in the village to find out about the many ghost stories of the magnificent old inn. The Skirrid Mountain Inn is believed to be the oldest inn in Wales, and it could well be the most haunted. There's a reference to the Skirrid dating back to 1110, when a court gave its verdict on two brothers, James and John Crowther, who were both accused of robbery with violence and sheep stealing. John Crowther was hanged here on an interior beam for the crime of sheep stealing. And over the next 800 years, 182 criminals were hanged in the area of the stairwell. To this day, visitors can view the hanging beam at the Skirrid, a chilling reminder of the brutality of olden day justice. The Skirrid Inn is signposted off the A465 north of Abergavenny, and high above it is the Skirrid Mountain, the Holy Mountain. It is believed that a large fissure appeared on the mountain shortly after a bolt of lightning hit it, the day after the crucifixion of Jesus Christ, in the Holy Land. From the churchyard at Llanfihangel, Croccorny, I made my way to Wales' oldest inn. The sign above the pub shows the Holy Mountain with a lightning bolt hitting the hill. Inside, Daryl, who runs the pub, explained to me that on a nightly basis, tables move by themselves. Bright lights appear from nowhere and doors open, seemingly with no human intervention. In the bar area, he told me that a £10 note had travelled the full length of the bar and then carried on for another couple of feet, apparently floating in midair before finally falling to the ground. The £10 note's mystery flight came despite it being weighed down by coins that had been placed on top of it. He also told me that he has seen orbs and was able to take photographs of them. One lady, he told me, refused to go upstairs at all anymore because of the amount of ghostly goings on that regularly occur at this ancient pub. Another customer reported that toilet rolls kept spinning. Oh, the beer burps at 47 minutes and 56 seconds. There we go. Another customer reported that toilet rolls kept spinning and unraveling all night and appeared to grow to 3 times their normal size. Another interesting story I heard is of the Devil's Cup. This phenomenon goes back to the time of Shakespeare. The Devil's Cup at the Skirrid is filled every evening at about 11:30 p.m. I have watched this happen. The next morning, without fail, the liquid inside the cup has gone down. Sometimes by as much as an inch, sometimes much more. On my overnight stay at the Skirrid, I checked on the Devil's Cup the following morning, and sure enough, the level of liquid inside the cup was substantially lower than it had been the night before. As far as I know, the Devil's Cup has gone untouched by human hand that night. In the dining area, I was shown the wooden panelling on the wall that is said to be from an ancient warship. Although there is no reference as to which specific ship it came from, incredibly, a few visitors have claimed to feel seasick in this room without knowing the history of the wooden panelling. Who knows, perhaps there is a presence of a sea captain or a naval officer in the room. Customers have also talked of the pub's cat, which is often seen in the dining room. Nothing strange in this, you might think, except that the pub doesn't have a cat. Perhaps the animal that has been seen is the ship's cat from all those years ago. Talking of cats, he's outside on the patio enjoying the late summer heat. So anyway, another common happening at the Skirrid is the smashing of plates. Halfway through their Sunday lunches, customers have been suddenly disturbed by plates that have fallen off walls and shelves for no reason. I think we'll just bookmark that and just have a quick swig of the old beer. Slange. Oh, delicious. Oops. You have help. The most sinister part of the Skirrid, however, has to be the incredible staircase that leads to the hanging beam. It is quite amazing. Not only was this place used as a courthouse, but also as a prison and execution room. There above me, I could see the original hanging beam from which so many people, many of them no more than petty criminals by today's standards, were hanged. To add to the drama, a rope still drops from the beam. It isn't the original, of course, but it is the exact size of the hanging rope that would have been used. On the beam itself, the original scorch marks can clearly be seen, together with deep grooves etched out by death ropes from days gone by. The rope swinging backwards and forwards within the the rope swinging backwards and forwards with the rope swinging backwards and forwards with the dead weight of a strangulated body would have scored the beams and left them as they are today. There are stories of visitors to the Skirrid hearing the sound of the rope swinging backwards and forwards, creaking on the hanging beam. On the staircase itself, the temperature is said to drop in one part, as if a spirit is actually standing there on the infamous staircase. People have reported sensing that they have passed somebody on the stairs, and say that they have felt coldness on the backs of their necks. Others have reported the backs of their necks actually being touched by someone or something. Helmeted figures are also said to stalk this area. Could this be something to do with an uprising many years ago? Onwards, at the top of the staircase, is the original courtroom, now used as bedrooms for brave residents. I was told that some people have hastily gathered their belongings and left in the early hours of the morning because of strange goings on. Visitors report having seen two men in the old courtroom, one sitting and the other standing, both of whom seem to be in the process of presiding over trials. One can only assume the man who is sitting must be the judge, while the other could well be the hangman. I went into the room where the trials took place and where the judge's retiring chamber would have been. It is reputed that, stand by, viewer David, here we go. It is reputed that Judge Jeffreys presided over courts in this very room. He is said to have practiced here before the risings in Somerset, just down the road at Sedgemoor. There we go. After being condemned, prisoners would be taken from the old courtroom into a cell, which is now a bathroom. I walked down the passageway where the guards would have marched each unfortunate prisoner to spend this last night before being executed. In contrast to his own misery, the condemned man would have been able to hear the revelry of the alehouse below, where patrons would have been in high spirits. The following day, unless it was a Sunday, in which case there would be an extra night in the condemned cell, the wretched individual would be brought from what is now a bathroom to the old staircase and hanged. Once pronounced dead by slow strangulation, the body would be taken out of the back door of the Skirrid and buried in unconsecrated ground. In the case of a murderer being hanged, the body might also have been publicly dissected before burial. It is therefore not difficult to understand why this place is so haunted, and why there is so much unrest at the Skirrid Mountain Inn. Put a bookmark in there, so we have another swig of beer. What are we up to? 50 minutes. There we go, viewer David. Viewer David, I think, has just chimed in. The judge. There we go. Old Judge Jeffreys. Viewer David also says, I ought to visit more castles with or without thunderclap. I agree with that. And he says a snifter of Laphroaig, perhaps. I'll have a look, see what they got in Lidl tomorrow. But what of the ghost of the lady whose grave I visited at Llanfihangel, Crackorny? Fanny Price is believed to have died from unnatural causes in bedroom number 3 at the Skirrid, and her ghost is said to wander between her grave and this bedroom. Many people have seen a figure on dark, foggy nights walking along the road towards the inn, but it always vanishes before anyone can get close to it. This, it is claimed, is the tragic Fanny Price, one-time wife of the landlord of the Skirrid. I asked Darrell whether anything had personally happened to him in the short time he had been at the pub. He recounted the story of a visitor who had asked to be shown around the inn. On seeing the former courtroom, the man stated that he loved the room and loved the bathroom, but didn't like the ceiling as it was rather modern compared to the rest of the room. As the visitor continued to moan about the ceiling, a vase jumped off a table and landed at his feet. The man immediately stopped complaining, ran down the staircase, ordered a large brandy, drank it rapidly, and then left the premises. Another fascinating story connected with the former courtroom is that of a cell door that opens and shuts. I took a closer look, and it seemed to me that it could be the original door of the condemned cell. It is certainly very old, and I have actually witnessed the door to the cell opening on its own on 2 occasions when we visited the Skirrid Inn. So you can take my word for it that the condemned cell really is extremely haunted. What a place this is! It must be one of the most haunted places, not just in Wales, but also in the whole of the British Isles. There are so many ghosts at the Skirrid Inn, the ghost of Fanny Price and the 180 people executed, hanged in the stairwell. Add to this the ghost of a jailer as well. Add to this the ghost of a jailer, as well as the restless spirit of a man who apparently stabbed himself to death in the condemned cell to avoid being hanged. And of course, there are the reported sightings of, go on, viewer David, Judge Jeffreys. Before leaving, while walking outside the inn, I stumbled upon yet another story. I stood on the original mounting block at the pub, where men would have stood to mount their horses, and people say that it is here they see the ghost of Owen Glyndŵr. Glyndŵr is a legendary figure in Wales and was the man who was fighting in the 1400s, or 2 o'clock, to secure Wales' future and rid the country of the English. Don't blame you, mate. He did very well. He fought for 4 years against the English and even managed to establish his own Welsh parliament. He also started talking to the French about becoming allies, but events turned against him and he had to go into hiding. Glyndŵr is said to have marshalled his troops in the cobbled courtyard at the Skirrid Inn before his march on Pontrillus. Legend has it that he had a magic stone that could conjure up storms and bad weather. It could also make him invisible, and when he disappeared in 1415, or 2:15, some say killed by the English, the Welsh said that he had become invisible and had gone into hiding, and that he would not reappear until the English had left Wales. Where I stood was the very stone from which Glyndŵr would have mounted his horse as he went to fight the English. Successive princes of Wales and kings of England also used it, and I can only imagine the power and energy that must be emblazoned into this special stone. We're coming up to the hour mark. I think that definitely deserves a thunderclap. For the 3rd time tonight, goodness me, we have another dead soldier, and Run VT.
Oh, it's jolly nice of you. Hello, dead soldier. Seen plenty of those in my time.
Indeed. Oh my goodness me, Richard Felix, you do know how to write a decent ghost story book. I think once the show is over and I've gone downstairs to get supper on the go, and I come up here and do a little bit of housekeeping, I may go onto eBay and have a look to see if there are any more of the Ghost Tour of Great Britain books to be had for cheaps, because these are brilliant, absolutely fabulous. Anyway, cheers, me beers. In the magnificent United Federation of Planet Shot Glass, again courtesy of viewers Kirsten and Steve from the United States, slangs me Bob. Boy, lovely. Anchor Hill, that's A-N-C-R-E, Anchor Hill, Monmouth. Just outside Monmouth on what is now the B4233, a serious road accident involving a coach and four took place in 1850. The coach was belting down Anchor Hill in a thunderstorm and, unable to rein in his horses, the coachman lost control. He managed to negotiate the first bend, but at the second, the frantic coachman could do nothing to prevent the coach going onto two wheels before crashing onto its roof and careering into a wall. As the four horses splayed in all directions, the human cargo was sent flying into nearby fields. There were five passengers on board, and, unsurprisingly, 3 of them were killed instantly. Legend has it that on the anniversary of the disaster, and also on dark, stormy nights, when the atmosphere is the same as or similar to that fateful night, a vague reconstruction can be seen of a coach thundering down the road and hitting the wall, turning over and then splintering into tiny pieces of wood before disintegrating and disappearing completely from view. I went to the top of Anchor Hill to a farmhouse, and a gentleman kindly gave me the number of the man by the name of Stephen Clark, who actually wrote the original account of the tragedy in the 1960s. When I contacted Mr. Clark, he told me the exact story that I have just told you. So you could say that I got it almost straight from the horse's mouth. This might be the last one tonight, folks. Goodness me. I'll have a bit more of the old wasabi mixed rice snacks. How unprofessional. You don't see them do this on BBC News. And I was just about to say, no, I'm not going to say it, but yeah. So, oh, lovely. Possibly the last one for tonight. Oh, we've just gone through the hour mark. Possibly the last deux for tonight. Yeah, I think we'll do deux. So, 12, Ebervale, Gwent. A disturbing apparition is said to haunt the remains of St. John's Church in Ebervale in South Wales. It is thought to be the ghost of a dark-haired young woman who is seen in a shimmering white form, cradling her precious baby in her arms. Staring straight ahead, she walks along a path by a stream. but people who have seen her claim that as the stream meanders near a bridge, the young woman and her child completely disappear. She has also been seen walking on the other side of the bridge, making her way towards the churchyard on the far side of the village. As she approaches the church gates, however, she disappears once again. I am told she is the ghost of a girl who had an affair with the son of a wealthy farmer in abstemious early Victorian days. Named William, his intentions appeared to be sincere, and the girl loved him. Complicating the matter, however, was William's father, who insisted his son marry the daughter of a family friend who happened to be a sea captain. The affair continued, however, although the girl resisted William's advances because her moral values would not allow her to give herself to a man before marriage. Consequently, William conceived a plan that involved a secret marriage, explaining that otherwise he would be disinherited. The girl fell for the plan and, blissfully unaware that the marriage was not legal, she went through with the ceremony, which was conducted by one of William's friends. Suspicious that all was not right, the girl's father objected to William's daily visits, but his young bride truly believed she was married to her beloved William. In time, however, his visits became less frequent. On the rare occasions he did visit, the girl pleaded with him to make the marriage public, but he refused. Worse was to follow. Eventually, William told the girl that their illegal marriage was over and he didn't wish to see her again. Even the news that the girl was pregnant couldn't persuade William to change his mind. When the girl's father was told of the secret marriage, he confronted William's father. Though accepting the injustice of his son's deception, William's father insisted that there was no way he could allow his son to marry beneath his station. He would marry the daughter of the sea captain. The girl's father stormed out, cursing the forthcoming marriage. Heartbroken, on the eve of William's marriage, the girl, carrying her newborn baby, visited her deceitful lover one last time. No one knows what conversation took place, but the following day, the bodies of the girl and her baby were found floating in the stream next to the mill. Was she murdered? Or in the depths of desperation, did she throw herself and her baby into the cold water? Nobody knows, but it seems her restless soul still haunts this place to this very day. There is an epilogue to the story. Shortly after the girl's death, William drowned on his honeymoon. Ironically, his bride was pregnant and 9 months later was in exactly the same situation as his heartbroken former lover. Some believe the tragic situation was caused by the curse put on William's marriage by the dark-haired girl's father. Right, this next one, Caerphilly Castle. I hate ending on a 13, but no, we'll end on 13. So, Caerphilly Castle. I've been to Caerphilly Castle. When did you go to Caerphilly Castle, JM? Fairly recently. How's fairly recently? 23 years ago. Yeah. Yes, I think it was Caerphilly Castle. I'm sure it was. Oh no, it was Kidwelly Castle. I've misremembered, but anyway, cheers, me beers. Snacks. Sorry, folks, messing around with messaging here. I just need to look up, where is Caerphilly? Oh, perhaps that was where we stayed. Yeah, I think it was. Or was it Bridgend? I think it might be Bridgend. Ogmore. I can't remember. It is going back 23 years ago. So, right, here we go. Caerphilly Castle. Only 10 minutes drive from Cardiff, Caerphilly Castle is regarded as one of the greatest medieval castles in Western Europe. It is also the home of the infamous Green Lady. Caerphilly is the largest castle in Britain after Windsor, and at the time of its building by Gilbert de Clare, Lord of Glamorgan, in the late 13th century, it was a revolutionary masterpiece of military planning. De Clare was one of Henry III's most powerful and ambitious barons, and his purpose was to secure the area and prevent lowland South Wales from falling into the hands of the Welsh leader Llywelyn the Last, who controlled most of Mid and North Wales. Castle Cock, giggity, is another example of a castle he constructed on the northern fringes of his territory for the same purpose. Caerphilly is unusual in that it is a pure example of late 13th century military architecture, for apart from the remodelling of the Great Hall and other domestic works for Hugh Le Despencer from 1322, no more substantial alterations were carried out. In days gone by, nobles would marry for reasons of politics, power, and wealth. At Caerphilly Castle, I was told the story of such a marriage, which took place between Gilbert de Clare, one of the most powerful English barons, and Alice de Ligson. Oh, with a beer burps again, do apologise. Oh, that's better. Right, we'll read that again. At Caerphilly Castle, I was told the story of such a marriage, which took place between Gilbert de Clare, one of the most powerful English barons, and Alice de Lusignan, the French niece of King Henry II. Gilbert was apparently a bad-tempered man obsessed by the pursuit of wealth and power, or reform MP as we call them these days. Alice was a different personality altogether, light-hearted, merry, and carefree. She did not consent to the marriage, but had little choice and left her home in France to live in Wales with a new husband who rarely paid her any attention. The sophisticated Alice spoke no Welsh and missed the poetry, dance, and fun she had enjoyed in her home country. The dark land of mountains seemed unwelcoming to her, and she was lonely. Coming up, Derps. You come in. Come on, you're coming up. Come on, you are holding the show up. The audience are waiting for you. Come on. Here he is. Here he comes. 1, 2, 3. There he is. Da, 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 da. You have been outside all evening, haven't you? Hey? Ah, right. All this changed one day, however, when Alice was introduced to the Welsh prince Hugh Tegg, a prince from Brythdir, a village 10 miles north of Caerphilly. Tegg had arrived at the castle to pay his respects to Gilbert de Clare, whose power and influence was steadily growing. Tegg immediately fell for Alice, and the feeling was mutual. Come on, Dirk, you're in front of the camera. Come on. Ladies and gentlemen, a cat's backside. Teg immediately fell for Alice, and the feeling was mutual. A devoted Catholic, Alice regularly confessed her sins, and one day confessed her love for Tew Teg. The monk at the confessional, is he called Harry? Let's find out. In turn, told Lord Gilbert everything. Gilbert was furious and immediately divorced Alice, sending her back in disgrace to France. When Tew Teg heard of this, he flew into a rage, hunting down the disreputable monk and hanging him for the betrayal of Alice's trust. The actual place where the monk was hanged is known as the Vale of the Monk. When Gilbert heard of this, he too was infuriated, and, on his orders, Tew Teg was tracked down and hanged to avenge the death of the monk. Goodness me, they don't mess around, these people. Devastated by her lover's violent and untimely death, Alice is said to have died of a broken heart. Her spirit is said to still frequently wander Caerphilly Castle, desperately searching for her lost love, and she gazes sadly towards Tew Teg's village of Brythdir. As much of the sightings, however, it is the scent of the Green Lady that concerns the modern-day staff at Caerphilly Castle. The smell of perfume, especially near the flag tower, is apparently so strong that the castle's security guards have been known to refuse to venture to the top of it. It is not only the Green Lady, however, who haunts Caerphilly Castle. On certain days, many people have claimed to have seen the image of ghostly soldiers patrolling the castle's battlements. Perhaps they are the men who tried in vain to defend the castle against the Prince of Wales' assault in 1270, who still patrol the grounds. Or perhaps they are the spirits of the handful of men who, 57 years later, defended the castle heroically against William La Zouche de Mortimer's. Or perhaps they are the spirits of the handful of men who, 57 years later, defended the castle heroically against William La Zouche de Mortimer's thousands of attackers. And that'll be it for tonight. Whoops, Daisy. Look at you done, Derp. Can't take you anywhere. Slange me, Val. Delicious. There he is, look. Perched on my lap. Slange. Ah. Those are going downstairs to be washed, ready for Sunday. So that's it for tonight. Goodness me. What have we done tonight? An hour and 15 minutes. Yeah, quality entertainment, folks. So, fingers crossed, we'll be back on Sunday for, brace yourselves, Sunday Night Ghost Stories. The one, the only, the original Sunday Night Ghost Stories. But until then, it behoves me to say thank you for watching. Why? Why not? From myself and Derpo here, it behoves me to say thank you for watching. Stay safe, stay out of trouble, and please don't have nightmares. Good night.